morning. This is Anna Patterson with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you so much for joining our housing call this morning. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Executive Director, Samuel Gunter.
Good morning, everyone. This is Samuel, Executive Director of the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have got quite a few updates for you, but I wanted to jump on before Stephanie takes it over and walks through the housing specific updates because I wanted to talk a little bit about what we are seeing in North Carolina over the weekend and coming into this week. As many of you are likely aware, especially those of you in Charlotte, Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Patrol have begun operating in Charlotte. And we are hearing that they are going to be operating in Raleigh, potentially Durham and Orange County as well, beginning today. We are a coalition, and our mission is to lead a movement to ensure that every North Carolinian has a home in which to live with dignity and opportunity. And for a whole host of other reasons, that is why we care about this and communities living in fear. Dropping my kids off this morning at Durham Public Schools, so many of our students are out today in Durham out of fear of federal law enforcement that is operating in incredibly awful manners, intentionally attempting to terrorize communities. We're an organization whose mission is to lead a movement to ensure that every North Carolinian, that's anyone who's here, has a home in which to live with dignity and opportunity. This is not dignified and it cuts off opportunity. We advocate for affordable housing because we want to see safe, healthy, thriving communities in North Carolina, and operations that include racial profiling, targeted public harassment, arrests made by masked agents only instills fear and jeopardizes safety and livelihoods of our neighborhoods. We are continuing to monitor current activity, and we're also going to be including in the housing call notes resources from Siembra and Carolina Migrant Network and ACLU and others who have resources about what rights you have, about ways that you can engage, but wanted to say at the front end that with all of the public policy things specifically related to housing that are going on, especially with the government coming out of shutdown, and many of us wanting updates on, so what does this mean for this grant, for this federal resource, for the future of Housing First, for and on and on and on, these technical housing questions that as I turn it over to Stephanie, she'll dive into, but we can't start today without acknowledging that a number of our communities in North Carolina are under lockdown and living in incredible fear because of an out of control federal law enforcement presence. As we move through the rest of this call, I want those of you out there to know that we are in solidarity with you. And again, we will be pushing out resources as well from partners of ours, coalition members of ours who are on the front lines of protecting communities. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to continue on with the housing news.
Thank you, Samuel. Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and continue with housing specific news. If you will save the date on your calendar for December 4th, we will be having a virtual end of year policy update similar to the one that we had last year. We will be giving an overview of all of the unprecedented chaotic changes this year that have really caused a lot of change to our housing ecosystem. Different impacts ranging from the cost of construction to families' abilities to access essential programs and resources and more look a lot different this year. And then at the state level, the lack of a budget has put essential housing funds in jeopardy, along with other intersectional resources and programs like the Healthy Opportunities Pilot Program and the Transitions to Community Living Initiative. So this end of year policy update is going to review a lot of those changes, kind of summarize the federal and state housing policy and funding environment so far, and then also examine the threats, but also opportunities that our housing ecosystem may have as we try and figure out how to prepare for the year ahead. So you can register using the link in our call notes. And if you have any questions or would like to send those ahead of time, please feel free to do so. On a positive note, would like to thank the folks who have signed on to our Workforce Housing Loan Program letter. We have almost 45 organizations and over 50 individuals who signed on to the letter. And these include local organizations, developers, builders, lenders, North Carolina associations. And we're really thankful. Again, I think I mentioned this the other week. It's just a really good example of the fact that we are a housing ecosystem. So even if we might operate our own respective activities and programs and from specific angles, that at some point the cause that is housing brings us all together. So as we coordinate some final signatures, we're going to continue to monitor the General Assembly schedule and identify a more strategic opportunity to circulate the letter to key leadership. Moving to federal updates, as we anticipated, and as you may have seen in our policy update last week, in a disappointing but anticipated move, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, issued a notice of funding opportunity last week that is going to drastically reduce permanent housing funds for continuums of care. And instead, it's moving funding to transitional housing with high barrier work requirements. And this is a decision that this policy change, according to HUD staff, they estimate that it could put more than 170,000 people at risk of homelessness. And in addition to that, the NOFO includes new scoring criteria that could place even existing funding at risk because of factors that are honestly outside of the COC's control. So, for example, scoring criteria includes whether or not there's a prohibition on public camping that covers the full COC geographic area. If you know anything about COCs, they can be as much as 1 or 2 counties or multiple counties. So that's a lot of land to cover. And so to provide incentive for the criminalization of homelessness for a program that is supposed to address it is quite the twist. The NOFO timeline is also a source of concern with an award date of no sooner than May 1st, 2026. So this is 2025 funding that is not anticipated to be awarded before May 1st, 2026, meaning many COCs will run out of funding, and this will lead to critical service disruption. The light here is that there is bipartisan support to stop these NOFO changes. Last month, more than 20 Republicans in Congress drafted a letter asking HUD Secretary Scott Turner to grant a 1-year extension to all HUD Continuum of Care COC grants expiring in 2026. And so in line with that, we are joining our national partners at the National Alliance to End Homelessness. And we're asking fellow advocates and practitioners and folks across our ecosystem to contact their members of Congress and ask them to take action and stop these really detrimental changes to HUD COC notice of funding opportunity. As many of you know, after 6 weeks, the longest shutdown in federal history has come to an end. Last week, the Senate Republicans won the votes of 7 Democrats and 1 independent, and this gave them the minimum votes needed to pass a continuing resolution. And then the House passed the spending bill at a vote of 222 to 209, and it was signed into law. So what this continuing resolution does and doesn't do is really important to point out. This CR temporarily funds the federal government through January 30th of 2026. But alongside the CR, Congress also passed a minibus. So this provides a full fiscal year of funding for Veterans Affairs, agriculture, and legislative operations. The spending package provides SNAP funding through September 2026, so through the end of the fiscal year. And it also includes resources to reimburse states for money spent to maintain SNAP programs during the shutdown. In addition, it provides legally required back pay for federal workers and reverses layoffs that the administration implemented at the start of the shutdown in October. What this CR does not do is extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits that expire at the end of the calendar year. And as a result, the annual health insurance premiums for North Carolinians in particular, who buy their insurance on the marketplace, could increase by an average of $670. The CR also does not prevent the current administration from rescinding previously committed funds, which has been a really problematic trend and has interrupted a lot of programs and services already. So what now? Congress now has until January 30th to either pass the remaining 9 spending bills, pass another CR, or enter another shutdown. Moving into our state updates and looking at legislative updates. Last week, Governor Stein requested that the General Assembly reconvene this week for a special session, which happened yesterday on fully funding Medicaid and reversing provider payment cuts. However, leadership responded by saying they would not reconvene legislators, and the General Assembly is next scheduled to reconvene in December. So they gavelled in and gavelled out yesterday, and there likely will be another gavel in and gavel out Thursday before they're convening in December. Both chambers have also previously indicated that there will not be any more votes until January. And as a reminder, we have no budget. Upcoming meetings that we're looking at this Thursday, the Joint Legislative Commission on Governmental Operations Subcommittee on Hurricane Response and Recovery will meet in Greenville, North Carolina at Eastern Carolina University this Thursday, again, November 20th at 10 a.m. The link to be able to watch this meeting will be in the call notes for you. I am going to also lift up one more resource happening on Thursday. It is a part of the Carolina Across 100, Our State, Our Homes initiative, looking at lessons from local housing bond efforts in North Carolina. And I lift this up because I think that we have mentioned housing bonds and local housing trust funds in our various presentations across the state as an example of what local governments and municipalities are having to do in light of receding federal funds and insufficient state investment. And so that combination over the last several years, decades really, has led to a lot of creativity. And so this should be a really interesting webinar. Some highlights from the panelists that have experience implementing plans around housing bond dollars should be good. So there will be time for audience Q&A, and if you're interested, please check it out. I'm going to end it there. We have a lot of reports and resources as always, and some headlines that will be interesting for folks to read. I just want to emphasize what Samuel already mentioned at the beginning of the call. As a proud daughter of an immigrant, and as someone who really cares about community, I think that it's really important that we think about what being in community means and what we believe seeing safe, healthy, and thriving communities look like in our state, in our cities, and in our towns. And so I just ask that everyone be safe, be careful, and be compassionate. The housing notes will be out within the next day at the most. And as always, please reach out if you have any questions. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Be safe. We'll talk to you next time.